It is the time of year again where we get to sit down with some of our favorite people and find out exactly about what's going on in their lives and how things have went. And joining me is Area MP Rosemarie Falk. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Yes, anytime.
Well, let's talk about this year. It's been a complex year. I mean, maybe not as complex as the past couple, but let's talk about some of the personal highlights for you for this past year.
For sure. It's funny you say this year because I think of just this past fall session, but really we go back to January and it's been a busy year. I mean, even coming out of the pandemic, even when we think of restrictions, like those were just lifted not too long ago, right? So I think some of the highlights, definitely getting back to normal. Being able to see people, being able to travel, have the parliamentary session, this fall session especially, being able to be in person. We still have that hybrid thing going on, but it's nice to be in person. Another highlight is we got a new leader.
Right.
Which it's hard to believe all in this year. But I mean, the optimism, the caucus unity, the hope that there is for the future. I mean, it's a great way to end off the year.
And I know it's tough to encompass everything that's happened. And your constituents obviously will come to you, and no matter what, good, bad, otherwise, I'm sure you hear so much. But what are some of the things that they have been talking to you about throughout the year, and even just recently, some of their concerns, or even some of the things that they think is really going well?
Yeah, for sure. I think even when we look at the beginning of the year, we had protests, right? There was the trucker convoy in Ottawa. So I've heard a lot about that. Also to this, coming into, I guess, this fall, the Liberals had brought in their firearm confiscation ban.
Right.
And that's even developed in the past couple weeks. So I've heard a lot about that. And also to just the cost of living. 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals just because they can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And especially for us rural folk, I mean, the carbon tax on everything, that's just an added cost passed down to the consumer, right, on everything when we think of, let alone our fuel and our heat for our homes, but even our groceries, everything that's trucked to us has that, right? So it's definitely the cost of living. My office is hearing a lot about people just, really struggling to make ends meet.
What do you say to people who think that, oh, she's never going to read what I send in, or, I can contact her, but nothing's going to happen? What do you say to the people who say those types of things or think that way?
For sure. And I mean, you know what, it's a real thing. People, it doesn't matter what party you're in, what level of government. I'm sure all elected officials hear the same thing, but I tell people all the time, if I don't hear from you, I can't advocate from you. Sometimes it might take a couple phone tags till we get in touch, or sometimes it's a couple weeks, but I try as hard as I can, so does my office, to make sure we reach out to everybody that contacts my office, whether it's a question, a concern, or even just a comment that, or an idea, why don't we do this, or why aren't you doing this, or could you say this? I really value what constituents have to say, and I tell constituents all the time, I have the opportunity of being their voice. Mm-hmm. So it is imperative that I hear from them so that I can take that to the floor of the House of Commons, but also to the caucus room and have those conversations with my caucus colleagues as well.
Heading into this new year, Rosemarie, obviously it's tough to kind of predict how things are going to go, but are there some things that are at the top of your mind for what you want to accomplish heading into 2023?
Well, my most important job, and this actually ties into your previous question, is to be that voice for the constituents of Battlefords-Lloydminster. And I tell people sometimes what people want from our constituency isn't popular in Ottawa or even in the caucus room, but it is my job sometimes to be that thorn in the side, per se, to make sure that the real life experiences and sometimes even hardships that some people in Battlefords-Lloydminster are facing are heard, and that those stories are told. So I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to be that voice. But as for predictions, I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm hearing we could have a spring election,
right.
Which, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't want to have an election, but I don't know if Canadians want to have an election.
Right.
We had the same results just last year in 21. So who knows? They say a whole week can happen in a day,
right.
in politics.
What's it like for you, Rosemarie, being in the House of Commons, and you know, obviously you do a lot of work in the constituency, but what's it like being there where the action is? Is it exciting, or do you find it kind of, you know, just run of the mill, or what's your take on that?
It's a new, different day every day, right? And sometimes, and being in a minority is quite interesting, and also opposition. So really knowing the standing orders and what could be done procedurally in order to make sure that we are able to scrutinize legislation to its fullest. I mean, we've seen a lot of time allocation from this government with the NDP helping, which has been frustrating. So seeing ways that we are able to make sure that every piece of legislation gets scrutinized to its fullest. I mean, that's part of the opposition's job. So it's never a dull moment, that's for sure.
Well, heading into the new year, everybody's going to take a little bit of a break and a breather, hopefully. So if you had a message for your constituents just to end the year off, what would you like to let them know?
I would definitely want them to know that I am fighting for them in Ottawa, but also to have a wonderful Christmas. Enjoy this season with family and friends. Don't take for granted the ability to be together. I think that's one thing maybe some of us did take for granted over the years. So make sure to enjoy that time, and a happy and healthy new year for 2023.
Well, Rosemarie, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to chatting with you again in the new year.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you.